10 bone-chilling true stories from isolated cabins that haunt your dreams forever. The sun had just kissed the horizon, painting the sky a deep crimson, when Sarah heard the first scream. It echoed through the woods, sending chills racing down her spine and tightening the knot of fear in her stomach. She was no stranger to the haunting stories of the isolated cabin deep in the woods, where menacing shadows danced under the flickering light of an ancient lantern. What sinister secrets lay hidden within those rotting walls? Everyone in town had heard the tales of vanished campers, ghostly apparitions, and a sense of unease that gripped the lone wanderers who dared spend a night there. As dusk fell, it was as if the very trees held their breath, warping and twisting in sinister shapes. Branches cracked and whispered secrets carried on the wicked wind. A creature was stirring, lurking just out of sight, waiting for the unsuspecting trespasser. Sarah's heart raced. Could the legends be true? She grasped her flashlight tight, its beam flickering like the last thread of sanity. Almost without realizing it, she had strayed too close to the cabin. Its door hung ajar, creaking ominously with each gust of wind. Shadows flittered inside, darting as if beckoning her to enter. But what lay beneath that peeling paint and shattered glass? Stories spoke of a family that had vanished without a trace, their faces forever frozen in terror. Another victim of the cabin. Dread tightened its grip around her heart as she remembered the whispers of the townsfolk. Never go near that place at night. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cabin loomed ahead, a ghostly fortress among the trees, where time stood still and darkness thrived. Sarah felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her every move as she stood frozen, paralyzed by intrigue and fear. With a deep breath, she stepped closer, the crunch of leaves beneath her feet resonating like a death knell. Each step stirred her unease, each shiver raced through her bones. What awaited her inside those decrepit walls? The stories whispered of unimaginable horrors, yet Sarah was drawn in by curiosity, by a fierce sense of adventure. But with each heartbeat, she wondered if she could escape whatever lurked within, or if she would become another chilling tale for the next wanderer to tell. The air thickened as Sarah stepped past the threshold. The door creaked louder, a mournful wail that sent shivers racing down her spine. Dust hung like a ghostly fog, swirling in the beam of her flashlight. Shadows clung to the corners, twisting and stretching. Would she see the faces of the lost? Her breath came quick, shallow. The old cabin smelled of decay and memories long forgotten. Each creak of the wood under her feet sounded like whispers, murmuring secrets that begged to be revealed. She hesitated, gripping her flashlight as if it were a lifeline. What if I'm not alone? The thought echoed ominously in her mind. A flicker in the darkness caught her eye. She turned, heart hammering, as her light fell on faded photographs plastered crookedly across the walls. The families gazed out with hollow eyes, smiles frozen in time. Whoever they were, their joy felt like a cruel joke now. "What happened to you?" she murmured, stepping closer. That S when she heard it again. A sound beyond the wind, a low, guttural growl. It chilled her to the bone, vibrating through the cabin like a warning bell. Sarah's chest tightened, panic flooding her veins. She wanted to run, to slam the door and escape this nightmare, but the magnetic pull of the cabin's secrets kept her rooted in place. Before she could decide, the shadows shifted. An outline formed in the corner of her eye, a dark figure, barely visible but undeniably there. Its presence was overwhelming. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as she attempted to focus her light. The beam flickered dangerously, casting erratic patterns against the walls, as if the cabin itself were alive, breathing. "Show yourself!" she shouted, her voice trembling. But the figure only loomed larger, its features obscured, a daunting mass that seemed to absorb the light around it. Fear threatened to suffocate her as she took a step back, navigating the debris littering the floor. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet the urge to discover the truth clawed at her. "What do you want?" She felt both naive and defiant. The silence stretched, heavy and oppressive. Then came the loud bang, a door slamming somewhere in the cabin, reverberating through her bones. Sarah screamed, the sound tearing from her throat as she spun around, seeking escape. There was a sound, a faint whisper riding the chill of the wind, but it was not discernible. Just terror, drenched in the stench of fear. As she bolted towards the door, her flashlight flickered again, and for just a moment she caught sight of it, a face. Pale, twisted, eyes wide with horror. It was gone in an instant, swallowed by the darkness, yet it burned in her mind. My God, she thought, what if it was one of them? Throwing open the door, she stumbled outside. The forest swallowed her in darkness, the weight of the isolation settling around her. She had entered the cabin, eager to uncover its secrets, but now she felt the tug of something deeper, a haunting need to understand what she had just witnessed, to comprehend the horror etched into the cabin's walls. But something was waiting. The woods seemed alive, the trees groaning with anticipation. Just as she turned to flee, a howl pierced the night, primal and raw. It sent her racing into the forest, but who or what was following her? With every ounce of her being, Sarah ran. But in the shadows, dread began to curl around her thoughts. What if I can never escape? What if they never let me go? In the safety of the woods, the screams echoed in her ears, and the forest felt more alive than ever. She had escaped the cabin, but what had she really left behind? The question nagged at her like a splinter in her mind. And somewhere, lurking in the darkness, she sensed that the cabin was waiting for its next victim. What would happen if she went back? Branches scraped against her arms like skeletal fingers as Sarah dashed between the towering trunks of the trees. Each crack of the underbrush sounded like hammering footsteps behind her. She couldn't tell if it was her imagination or if something truly was there, breathing down her neck. Panic surged within her, like a tidal wave ready to crash. "Just keep running," she whispered to herself, the rhythmic pounding of her heart drowning out the sinister sounds of the forest. Darkness clung to the air, making it hard to navigate. The flashlight beam flickered with a mind of its own, casting wavering shadows that danced like phantoms around her. "What is it?" she gasped aloud, her breath misting in the cool night air. Another howl sliced through the silence, a spine-chilling sound that echoed in her soul. It can't be real, she thought. She had to find safety, somewhere away from this nightmare. But the woods were an endless expanse of darkness, and every snap of a twig sent adrenaline racing through her veins. Desperation made her stop. She leaned against a tree, gasping for air, her lungs burning. She strained to hold on to what little composure she had left. Think, Sarah? What's the plan? There had to be a way out. But her mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion. In the distance, she saw it, a dull glimmer of light. The cabin? No, it couldn't be. But the glow beckoned her, pulling her closer like a moth to a flame. No. She shook her head. You can't go back there, she told herself. Yet her feet seemed to have a mind of their own, leading her toward that faint glimmer. As she approached, the brightness morphed into shapes, unsettling shapes that twisted and turned within the walls of the cabin. Shadows blurred in and out of view, whispering secrets she dared not comprehend. She could almost hear their names, the voices of the lost ones she had seen in those photographs. But if she didn't turn away, if she didn't run, would she become one of them? I wouldn't let that happen, she muttered under her breath, feeling bolstered by a sudden rush of determination despite the fear that threatened to consume her. The door loomed in front of her, creaking softly as if inviting her inside. As terror fused with curiosity, she heard it again, the guttural growl, closer this time, filling the air with palpable dread. It echoed in the pit of her stomach. Just as she reached for the doorknob, a tree branch snapped nearby, and the growl transformed into a haunting laugh, an echo of malice that chilled her bones. Instinct kicked in, and before she knew it, she was sprinting again, each step echoing her mounting dread. But she felt it, a presence lurking in the dark, its eyes fixed on her, watching her every move. She dared a glance back, and her heart plummeted. There it was! A figure, half hidden by shadows, eyes glimmering like shards of glass, locked onto her with a predatory intensity. Run! She screamed silently, a warning to herself. Ahead, the woods started to thin out, a shimmer of moonlight breaking through the canopy. There was a glade, a refuge. If she could just reach it! With renewed vigor she surged forward, her feet pounding against the loamy ground. But as she broke through the final line of trees, something even worse awaited. The clearing was filled with mounds, coffins of earth, freshly dug and eerily arranged in perfect rows. Sarah froze, dread seeping into her bones. The breath caught in her throat as she absorbed the chilling sight. They buried them here, she whispered, horrified. Something rustled behind her, and she spun around, feeling her heart rate double. What had she awakened? The shadows moved again, and in that moment she realized with paralyzing clarity that she was far from safe. Once again, the feeling of being watched crept over her, tightening like a noose. There was no way out. What had she done to deserve this? Would she be the next name in the whispers of the forest? As the darkness closed in, she was faced with a bone-chilling question: would she succumb to the same fate as those before her? And then an unexpected sound shattered the night, a desperate cry. It was familiar and hauntingly close. The sound bounced off the trees, sharp and desperate, piercing through the veil of night. Sarah's heart raced as she strained to identify the source. The voice echoed with an urgency that sent chills cascading down her spine. Help! It was unmistakable. Someone was out there, someone who might be in as much danger as she was. With shaky breaths, Sarah darted toward the sound, her instinct to rescue overpowering the paralyzing fear that rooted her in place. "Who is there?" she whispered, wishing she could call louder but fearing it would alert whatever hunted her. She twisted through the maze of earth mounds, her flashlight flickering again, casting an eerie glow on the freshly turned dirt. "Over here!" The voice cried out again, more urgent this time. Moving towards the sound felt like navigating through a nightmare, where every shadow could be a ghost or a predator. Her fingers trembled as she pushed branches out of her way, heart stumbling when she thought she heard something following her. But she had to keep going, had to find that voice before it vanished into the darkness. As she approached, she noticed a figure slumped near one of the mounds. Panic gripped her. Was this person alive or another specter trapped in the shadows? She took a careful step forward, creeping closer. "Please," it came again, the voice strained and weak. "Help me." In that moment, she could make out a face, pale and drawn, hair matted with dirt. Recognition flooded Sarah's senses. "Emily?" she gasped, breathless. Her college friend, lost to daydreams of adventure in the woods, was now a terrified soul pleading for help. "Sarah!" Emily cried, her eyes wide with fear. I thought I'd never see another person again." Her voice trembled, and her hands grasped the earth, making weak attempts to pull herself up. "What happened?" Sarah whispered, squatting beside her, eyes darting around as if hunted. "Are you hurt?" "The forest, it's alive," Emily murmured, her gaze faltering. "Something took the others. They're gone." "What do you mean?" "What took them?" Sarah pressed, panic rising in her throat. "It's not safe. We need to get out." Emily's breath hitched. "We were exploring," and Emily shivered, glancing at the mounds. The moonlight revealed her wide eyes. Then it came. "It watched us. It wants to take." A low growl interrupted her, a sound that curled around them like a cold breath. Sarah's heart dropped. Clarity struck like a lightning bolt. The presence they had disturbed something primal, awakened whatever lurked between the trees. "We need to move, now," Sarah urged, grasping Emily's arm, helping her up. But as Emily tried to stand, she faltered, the ground beneath them vibrating with a heavy thud. Panic flared through Sarah as she realized the sound wasn't just in her mind. It resonated closer, a breath away from engulfing them. Then she saw a dark, hulking figure emerged at the edge of the clearing, its eyes shining like obsidian. Sarah's blood ran cold. "Run!" She screamed, yanking Emily toward the trees, adrenaline shooting through her veins. They surged away from the looming darkness, the growls growing louder, echoing their frantic heartbeats. Woods rushed past them, branches clawing at their clothing, but something pressed heavier behind them, relentless in its pursuit. In the pulse of fear, she could scarcely think, fear smothering every rational thought. Then Emily stumbled, and Sarah felt a surge of terror. "Get up! We can't stop!" She dragged her friend just as the growling reached a deafening crescendo. They stumbled into a narrow path, the shadows closing in like a suffocating blanket. Heart racing fiercely, Sarah glanced back. The figure was closer than ever, a mass of claws and teeth, hungry for them. Where were they going? Where could they hide? With the light of the moon dwindling behind them, fear loomed larger than ever as they plunged deeper into uncertainty. But then a break in the trees revealed another glimmer ahead, a flicker of hope beckoning them forward. "Is that a way out?" Emily panted, desperation cutting through the overwhelming dread. But in her heart, Sarah could feel the tightening grip of the forest, like it was coaxing them back, demanding they answer for the intrusion they had made. They were not free yet, and just as they dared to hope, Sarah caught a glimpse of something above, a shadow flitting through the trees, impossibly fast. Hope and terror crashed into one another as they raced toward the unknown. Would they escape the grasp of the forest, or would it consume them whole? The chilling sound of a voice, a laugh, echoed through the trees, reminding them they were not alone. What had they unleashed with their curiosity? Would the darkness answer their cries, or was this just the beginning of their torment? Branches whipped against their faces like cold fingers as Sarah and Emily sprinted down the narrow path, hearts pounding in time with their hurried footsteps. The glow ahead flickered like a beacon, but the shadows seemed to writhe around them, alive with their own dangers. "Almost there," Sarah gasped, her breath frosting in the night air. But as they ran, the specter of the dark figure from behind bore down on them, its growl growing richer, like a predator savoring the hunt. The sinister laughs echoed, mixing with the growl, an unsettling chorus wrapping around them. "Do you hear that?" Emily's voice quivered, a mix of fear and confusion. "It's coming from all around, just keep moving!" Sarah shouted, desperate. She couldn't afford to dwell on the creeping sense of isolation setting into her bones. The fear that had clawed at her insides threatened to turn into full-blown panic. Suddenly, they burst into a small clearing. Dappled moonlight spilled into a circle of trees that seemed to close in like prison bars. In the center stood a dilapidated wooden shed, its door ajar and inviting. "Is that a way out?" Emily pointed, dread painting her features pale. Maybe it might be hiding something. Doubt crept in, but it was the only option they had. "No, we can't!" Emily cried, her eyes darting back to the ominous forest. "We shouldn't go in there. That's where it will find us." "Look!" Sarah turned, catching a glimpse of movement at the edge of the trees. "We don't have time. We need to decide." With no choice left, they both bolted towards the shed. Inside, shadows swallowed them whole. Moonlight shone in slats, illuminating dust motes floating in the still air. The scent of decay and dampness filled their lungs, making them cough. They tiptoed deeper into the shed, heartbeats echoing off the wooden walls. It was a graveyard of broken tools, rusted metal, and old equipment, all long forgotten. "Is there a way out?" Emily whispered, her voice a quaking shadow of its former strength. "I don't know. Just let me look." Sarah strained her eyes against the dark, searching for anything that could help them. The thud of their pursuer drew nearer, reverberating through the ground, setting their nerves on edge. As she raked her flashlight over the cluttered floor, something glinted in the corner. She knelt down, brushing layers of dust away to reveal a small trapdoor half buried beneath a pile of sawdust. Hope flickered in her chest, a shaky flame in the biting cold. "Emily! This could be it!" Sarah yelled, turning with renewed fervor. But the moment she looked back, her heart dropped. A pair of glowing eyes had followed them inside, piercing through the darkness with an insatiable hunger. The growl now sounded closer, reverberating dangerously within the confines of the shed. "Sarah!" Emily gasped, grabbing her arm tightly. What do we do? There's no time. We have to go down. The trapdoor creaked ominously as Sarah tugged at the handle, yanking it open just enough to see a dark void beneath. Are you crazy? We don't know what's down there. Emily's eyes widened with terror, but the sound of the growling drew nearer. It's that or we die, Sarah shouted, panic overriding caution. With one final push, she pulled Emily towards the darkness, and they tumbled down into the unknown, the world above closing off rapidly. The trapdoor slammed shut with a bone-rattling thud beneath them, plunging them into suffocating silence. The ominous growl above faded, yet the oppressive darkness felt alive with foreboding. In the stillness, they exchanged fearful glances, both aware that whatever had hunted them was still lurking, an ever-present threat. As they leaned against the damp walls, the sheeting horror of their situation thickened around them like smoke. Now what? Emily whispered, trembling as she clutched Sarah's arm. All we can do is move forward, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the fear writhing inside. But we have to be quiet. If it hears us. As they slowly edged deeper into the darkness, the air grew thicker, and the unmistakable sound of something moving in the dark made their hearts leap into their throats. Was there truly a way out? Or had they merely jumped from one nightmare into another? What awaited them in the shadows, and would they uncover the truth behind the laughter that echoed in their ears before it was too late? The trapdoor creaked, and the air felt charged with a tension that made Sarah's skin prickle. She held her breath, straining to hear anything above the steady thump of their own heartbeats. The low growl from above, although muffled now, seemed to linger in her mind like a dark shadow. Do you think it followed us? Emily's voice trembled, nearly lost in the suffocating air. I don't know. But the words didn't satisfy either of them. They pushed forward into the darkness, the beam of Sarah's flashlight flickering as if uncertain of where they were headed. Their surroundings blurred into an abyss of uncertainty, the danger looming above now replaced by something else entirely, something unknown. The damp walls felt slick under their fingertips as they navigated forward. Emily stumbled, a wave of panic cutting through the silence. Wait! What if we get lost down here? Stay close to me. Sarah held on to her friend's arm, offering reassurance even as fear gnawed at her gut. They stepped cautiously, each sound magnified in the silence. The distant drips of water echoed eerily, like laughs at their demise. Suddenly Sarah froze. A faint glimmer caught her eye, barely visible in the dark. She pointed her flashlight toward it, revealing a dusty, rusted handle jutting out from the wall a door. Maybe there's something on the other side, Sarah murmured, but as she moved closer, uncertainty twisted in her chest. What if it led them to more danger? Are you serious? After all we've been through? Emily whispered fiercely, shaking her head. What if you open it and it's worse? It can't be worse than what we left behind. Sarah felt a flicker of resolve. She had to believe they would find a way to survive. Okay, just be careful. Emily nodded reluctantly, fear mixed with a sliver of hope. With trembling hands, Sarah gripped the handle and pulled. The door groaned, the sound like a funeral dirge in the depths of despair. Light spilled through the crack, illuminating a narrow corridor beyond. See? We made the right choice, Sarah exclaimed, stepping inside. But as they crossed the threshold, a chill engulfed them. The air shifted, thick with a mix of mildew and something far more sinister. Their instincts screamed at them to turn back, yet curiosity propelled them forward. Just a few steps in, Sarah stumbled, her foot catching on something. She gasped, dropping her flashlight. It rolled away, dimming as darkness reclaimed the space around them. Sarah! Emily shouted, scrambling to grab the flashlight and shining it on what had obtruded from the floor, an old, weathered trunk, half buried, curious nails protruding like crooked fingers. What is this doing here? Sarah's voice trembled. Maybe it's a sign, Emily said quietly, dread washing over her. They both knew the stories of locked secrets, of things better left undisturbed. Blood rushed to Sarah's ears as she knelt before it. Do we dare? Her voice was a whisper, heavy with unasked questions. This is our chance to find out what's hiding down here. Or what we're really dealing with that. She unlatched the trunk and pulled it open with a creak that seemed to awaken the very spirits in the dark. Shadows danced in the small beam of their flashlight. Inside lay a collection of dusty, curling papers, mementos of lives once woven into existence. As Sarah sifted through them, she felt a pulse of icy energy race through her. Each document told a stories of loss, betrayal, bloodshed. Look! Emily gasped as she stumbled upon a familiar name, a past Sarah couldn't quite place. Wait a minute, this can't be. The giggling laughter returned, echoed through the walls, rising like smoke. It reverberated between their ears, cutting through their common sense. They realized then that the pieces of this discarded history were connected to them, their world, and maybe even the entity that chased them. Sarah, we have to go. Now! Emily urged, eyes darting toward the shadows creeping in closer. Just one more minute! But even as she spoke, Sarah felt the weight of their lingering presence behind them watching. Waiting to reclaim what was theirs. The laughter escalated, twisting into malevolent howls, and the walls of the corridor seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of something alive. With a blinding flash, the light flickered and died, plunging them into utter darkness. Heart racing, Sarah realized the truth. They had not escaped the nightmare that hunted them. They had merely been led deeper into its lair. As dread wrapped around them, Emily squeezed Sarah's arm. What do we do now? Whatever it is, let us face it together. But stepping further into the black, dread pooled in their stomachs. As uncertainty swirled, was it truly them in control, or had they walked into the web of a sinister trap? And just as the first chill of breath brushed against their necks, the laughter echoed again, now a terrifying crescendo, a reminder that they were never alone in the darkness. What awaited them in that suffocating blackness? And would it be too late for escape once they discovered the truth? The darkness around them felt alive, pressing against their skin like 100 hidden eyes watching their every move. Sarah gulped, her mouth suddenly dry as she strained to catch any sound over the echoes of that sinister laughter reverberating around them. Each clang of their own breathing amplified the dread swirling within the chamber. Emily's whisper barely broke the silence, but its weight felt like a rock dropped into a lake. Shouldn't we, I don't know, move? Get out of here. The sense of urgency rushed through Sarah. Yes, but where? We can't just go back, it's worse up there. She could almost hear the growl rising again, the low rumble echoing in her bones. We have to see what else is down here. You can't be serious. Emily's voice quaked with panic, and fear clutched her shoulders, pulling her back. What if this is a trap, Sarah? What if they're just waiting for us to make a move? Do you have a better plan? Sarah shot back, heart thudding. The trunk was still open, its contents enticing yet horrifying. A sense of determination welled in her chest, igniting the flicker of hope she clung to. We came to find answers. As she reached for a handful of the curling papers, a sudden rush of cold whispered through the air a warning. Sarah felt the hairs on her arms stand up. The flash of her flashlight flickered again but failed to ignite. This time, it was not the light tampering, it was the very chamber surrounding them. With a gasp, Emily fumbled to grab Sarah's arm, her grip frantic. Don't, but Sarah was too late. The moment she folded the papers in her grip, the mantle of shadows erupted in a chaotic howl, vibrating off the walls like a siren's warning. A sickening pulse radiated from the trunk, as if it contained a heartbeat of its own, a warning of the secrets best left buried. What did you do? Emily's breathing quickened. This wasn't just about being scared anymore. An unseen force swirled in the air, coiling around them like smoke. Sarah stammered, unable to form a valid excuse, but she could feel a heavy pressure rising from the floor, pushing against their feet. Something's coming. We have to go. They turned, but the corridor stretched before them like an endless chasm, shadows swirling and swirling, closing in. Sarah! Emily screamed, the fear slicing through the darkness like a knife. They dashed towards the faintest glimmers of light, which now danced like flickering candles too far away to reach. Each step felt like wading through molasses, each heartbeat louder in her ears as panic swallowed them whole. Run! Sarah shouted as she felt the energy behind them surge, a blurring mass of indistinct shapes swirling into form, hungry and desperate. Amid the chaos, the trunk's contents scattered across the floor, releasing an odorous stench of antiquity. Words etched in spidery handwriting on the papers caught her eye. Names. Dates. Connections pulsed through her veins. Emily! These are their stories, she cried, grasping at one paper that seemed to glow faintly. This might tell us how. The ground shook beneath them. Emily screamed, eyes wide as she pointed behind them. It's here! Run, Sarah! In that moment, they didn't look back. They sprinted through the corridor, touching the damp walls for guidance, knowing the presence behind them was not just a figment of their imagination. It chased them, breathing down their necks, dredging up their deepest fears. What awaited them at the end of the dark passage? Would they crash into freedom or trap themselves further in the clutches of fate? The corridor narrowed, and past the shadows, something ominous loomed. They were not alone, and whatever it was, it waited in the darkness, eager to claim their souls. Just as they reached a stone wall that felt closer than it should, the temperature dropped sharply. A voice, deep and echoing like a funeral bell, whispered through the air. You shouldn't have opened what was meant to stay shut. Their hearts raced as they debated whether the end of this passage would lead to safety, or a fate more harrowing than they could imagine. As they pressed forward, adrenaline surging, Sarah's thoughts raced. Could the answers to their survival be buried deep in the histories of those who came before? Or had they simply condemned themselves to repeat a horrific cycle of their own making? Every heartbeat thundered in Sarah's ears as they barreled through the corridor, the air thickening with despair and a sense of impending doom. The whispers grew louder and more distinct, swirling around them like fog. With each frantic step, she could almost feel the breath of whatever was pursuing them, hot and rancid against the back of her neck. Turn left! There's a door! Emily gasped, pointing toward a dark outline ahead. The two dashed towards it, feeling the walls tremble as the unseen force surged behind them. Push! Sarah yelled, shoving Emily forward as they collided with the door. To her surprise, it gave way, swinging open with a creak that echoed ominously through the nightmarish corridor. They stumbled inside, slamming the door shut behind them, their hearts racing like freight trains. The dim light revealed a small, claustrophobic room filled with more papers, candles, and artifacts that seemed old and warped, each one coated in a layer of dust. The air buzzed with a strange energy, as if the very walls were alive, watching, waiting. Look! Emily cried, her trembling finger pointing to a large, cracked mirror hanging from the far wall. The surface rippled, distorting their reflections like waves on a stormy sea. For a moment both women caught glimpses of pale faces emerging from the mist, hollow eyes gazing back at them. They recoiled, fear tightening around Sarah's throat like a noose. What is that place? Emily's voice quavered, but even in her terror, there was an undeniable curiosity dancing in her eyes. Sarah swallowed hard, urgency surging again through her veins. I don't know, but we can't just contemplate. We have to find a way out, and that might mean seeking the truth in what these stories reveal. She hurried to the nearest table, bent low, and examined one of the papers scattered among the clutter. The handwriting was frantic, words overlapping until they became a torrent of names, dates, and cryptic sentences. A ritual, sacrificed, blood must flow. She murmured, dread pooling in her stomach. What? What does it say? Emily peered over her shoulder, the entanglement of fear and intrigue palpable in the air. Some kind of ritual. It mentions a sacrifice, and those who tried to escape. Sarah's voice trembled as she recalled the echo of the whispers they had just fled. But could it be? The sudden sound of wood scraping on stone jolted them both. Panic bloomed anew as shadows flickered beneath the doorframe, a heavy thud resonating that hinted at their pursuer's growing frustration. Shh! Emily hissed, her wide eyes darting around the room. What do we do? Just then, Sarah noticed a trapdoor at the far corner, slightly ajar, revealing dirt and old roots intertwining below. It beckoned like a secret waiting to be unearthed. Down there! She urged. Without waiting for confirmation, Sarah grabbed Emily's hand and dashed to the trapdoor. She hesitated, glancing back at the door as it shuddered with ominous bumps. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, squeezing Emily's fingers tightly. "I guess we don't have a choice." Emily swallowed hard, her resolve faltering but her spirit igniting with determination. The trapdoor creaked as they pulled it open wider. Without another word they climbed down, plunging into the darkness below, the weight of what awaited them pressing hard on their shoulders. As they descended, the first whispers of voices danced around them, echoes of those who came before, screams mingling with whispers, creating a chorus of despair. They had stumbled into something ancient, something bound tightly by the threads of fear and sacrifice. And just as the world above them faded away, an urgent voice surged from the depths of the darkness, vibrating with a certainty that curled around their very souls. You shouldn't have come down here. What secrets awaited them in that suffocating darkness? Would they uncover the truth or become yet another story etched within these cursed walls? As they descended into the void, the lingering whispers intensified. Each word felt like a thread woven into the fabric of their fears, tugging at the edges of their sanity. Sarah and Emily landed on cold, damp earth that swallowed their feet, an unwelcome chill creeping through their bodies. "Where are we?" Emily whispered, her voice barely rising above the unsettling chorus. The darkness enveloped them, smothering any source of light. "I don't know." Sarah's heartbeat raced as she scanned their surroundings, the shadows too thick to penetrate. "But we have to keep moving." Emily squeezed Sarah's hand, the warmth of her grip a fragile comfort. They navigated through the cramped space, their senses heightened. The air carried a heavy stench of mold mixed with something metallic, a scent that clawed at Sarah's throat. She strained her ears for the telltale sounds of their pursuer, but all she could hear were the echoes of distant cries. Then, without warning, the floor beneath them shuddered. It was subtle at first, a mere tremor, but then evolved into a violent shake that sent them sprawling to the ground. Fear bloomed in Sarah's chest. What was happening? "Get up!" Sarah shouted, her voice an urgent whip crack in the oppressive darkness. She helped Emily to her feet as the ground cracked open before them, revealing a fissure that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. "Look!" Emily pointed at the jagged edges of the crevice. Caked blood seemed to glisten near the bottom, a primal warning that sent ripples of dread coursing through Sarah. "They've been here," Sarah murmured, her stomach lurching as the implications settled in. "We need to go back up." The ground quaked again, and the crevice widened, as if something below was trying to claw its way to the surface. Panic engulfed them, and instinct kicked in. They stumbled backward, their bodies brushing against the damp walls, the cold earth shivering as if discontented by their presence. "Sarah! We need to find another way out," Emily pleaded, her face pale under the crushing weight of fear. "Okay. Let us keep looking." They turned, breathless and desperate. But as they advanced deeper into the abyss, the whispers shifted, coiling around them like a serpent. Now they were clearer, insidious, each syllable laced with the promise of despair. Leave us, what are they saying?" Emily gasped, her voice shaking. Every fiber of Sarah's being urged them to flee, yet an invisible force pulled at her gut, urging her to delve into the darkness. "I think they're trapped. We have to help them." The words escaped Sarah's lips before she could fully process the consequences. Yet, was she really willing to risk their lives in hopes of saving others? Or was it a reckless folly? Help them? Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "We can't even save ourselves. Don't you see? This place is cursed." Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the crevice, illuminating their surroundings in a ghostly hue. Figures emerged from the shadows, moving closer, their faces pale and twisted in expressions of agony. "Run!" Sarah yelled, pulling Emily away just as the phantom forms reached out with ethereal fingers. They sprinted down the tunnel, the air now thick with desperation, pounding hearts echoing alongside their every step. But where were they going? Ahead lay only an unknown, a deepening darkness that threatened to engulf them whole. Just as they rounded a sharp corner, they stumbled onto something solid, an ancient stone altar, hidden in the shadows. Blood splatters adorned the surface, and Sarah understood then. Whatever this place had once been, It had not forgotten its purpose. In the distance, the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of tormented voices. You will join us. A feeling of dread pierced through Sarah's heart. They needed to escape, and fast. But as they turned to retrace their steps, the solid walls seemed to twist and close in around them, trapping them in a nightmare of their own making. Was the altar their way out or their end? What price would the darkness demand for revealing its secrets? The choice lay before them, heavy and laden with consequences. Which path would they take, and could they leap beyond the abyss? The heartbeat of despair thrummed around Sarah and Emily as they stood before the stone altar, frozen between the whispers of the lost and the horrifying weight of their predicament. We won't let it have us, Sarah vowed, her voice trembling. We're not part of this nightmare. But where could they go? The very walls tightened like a vice around them, stifling any hope. Voices clawed at their ears, binding them to the altar. They had trespassed into sacred ground, and whatever haunted this place wasn't he going to let them leave without a price. Look over there, Emily huffed, pointing toward the far side of the altar where a small, shadowed opening lay barely visible through the haze of darkness. Could it lead outside? Maybe, Sarah said, her stomach twisting. They had to take the chance or risk suffering a fate worse than death. On adrenaline alone, they approached the opening, their fear mingling with a desperate hope. Come on, said Sarah, gripping Emily's hand tightly. She took a step forward, and the air crackled, thick with tension. The whispers crescendoed, drowning out all rational thought. They plunged into the narrow passage, every taste of musty air filling their lungs with dread as they crawled through the dark, hoping it would lead them to freedom. Sarah, I can't breathe, Emily gasped, her voice panicked. Just a little further, Sarah encouraged, although her heart raced with uncertainty. As they wriggled through the tight confines, the heavy whispers morphed into anguished wails, haunting melodies that seemed to grasp at their clothing, pulling them back into the void. Suddenly, the air shifted. The flickering light from their flashlight broke through the darkness, revealing the glimmer of an exit a few feet away. They redoubled their efforts, scrambling desperately toward the light. But then, a low growl resounded from behind them, fierce and primal, shaking through the walls of the passage. Something was pursuing them, waiting for the moment they slipped. Emily stumbled, and Sarah whipped around, her heart pounding as the growl intensified, echoing like a death knell. Get up! We have to go now! Sarah screamed, panic slicing through her movements as she pulled Emily forward with frantic urgency. At last, they reached the exit, tumbling out into open air with the wildness of escaping captives. The moon loomed overhead, a pale watchman in the ink of night. Yet, the relief was fleeting. As they turned back, the shadows from the battleground of the altar twisted into a monstrous figure, eyes gleaming, maw open wide, ready to claim its next victims. Run! Sarah shrieked, thrusting Emily ahead as they sprinted into the forest, branches scratching at their arms like ravenous claws. As they raced through the trees, the air thick with fear, flickering memories haunted them, those anguished faces frozen in time, the growls echoing, saying they were never free. Hemmed in by shadows, their only hope lay in the path ahead. Don't look back, Sarah urged as they plunged through the underbrush, the breath of the creature hot against their necks, gnashing wildly. The woods pulsed around them, the trees alive with movement, but they wouldn't let the dark take them. Finally, a break in the trees met them with shimmering dawn. The first light of day painted the horizon with hope. They burst through, tasting freedom as adrenaline flooded their veins. But as they reached the edge of the forest, a sudden wind rushed at their backs, a final mournful whisper fluttering through the leaves, a promise that this wasn't over. Gasping for air, they stopped, turning to see the dark figure retreating to the shadows, ever present, waiting within the thicket. It wouldn't forget them. This nightmare had merely paused. Did we escape? Emily panted, disbelief washing over her. I think we did, but it's always there, Sarah murmured, feeling the weight of their shared terror settle into an unbreakable bond. Their adventure had brought unimaginable horrors to light, but their courage had carved a path through the darkness. A lingering question remained: would the stories they uncovered find them again, or were they finally safe? Only time would tell, but for now, they had each other. As they turned and walked away from the cursed forest, warmth flooded their hearts. They were alive, against all odds. In the growing light, they shared a fragile smile, knowing they had survived, knowing they would be forever changed. "Let us never speak of this again," Emily whispered, breaking the spell of silence that lingered between them. "Deal," Sarah replied as they made their way back home, the light illuminating the shadows left behind. "Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on more exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button to boost the algorithm. And we want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about this ending. Your voice matters, so don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.